Okay, so you started writing your film and TV script and you seem to be stuck. And I think it's because you may have forgotten one important element that I would recommend that everyone does, regardless of your skill. If you're just beginning or you're intermediate or you're advanced, you've got to outline your script. I cannot stress this enough. Hello, this is Lynette Renee Doby, and welcome back to the third installment. POV, you're writing a script for film and TV, and I am your writing consultant. If this seems like it's going to be of interest to you and you want to learn more about this subject, well, definitely go ahead and hit subscribe, like this video, and then at the end, if you found value, this is very important. I want you to share it with someone within your network who you think it could help. I'll give you a second to do that. I'll review my notes and then we'll get started. All right, thank you so much for doing that. So point number one is I don't want you to get lost. And whenever you're driving a vehicle, what prevents you from getting lost is your GPS, right? Well, that's what I want you to think about your outline as. It is your guiding set of instructions to get you to your destination. And unlike GPS, because GPS will always start at the very beginning of your journey, I want you to think of your project like this. I want you to start at the end and work yourself backwards. In doing that, you kind of know where you're going, so you kind of know how to structure your outline. And I also recommend that you freehand write out your outline yourself. You can use AI, but you know exactly what this story is. You know the characters because you've done your character development work, right? And so you're going to know exactly where this story is going. So I want you to freehand this out, but you've got to start with the end in mind so you know exactly where you're going. And that kind of brings me to my second point. Because if the outline is the map or your GPS, then structure is the vehicle. And a lot of times when I first started writing, and a lot of novice writers, they do this as well, they think that an outline confines them, right? Because they want I wanted the creativity to flow. I was like, look, no, I don't need no outline. I got it like that. Oh my gosh, the trouble that I got into when I was writing a particular script because I didn't outline it. But your structure is your vehicle. It's going to drive the story, right? And essentially, structure prevents you from having holes unconsciously or subconsciously within your story. So remember how I was telling you at first, I didn't think I needed an outline. I was like, I got this. Well, what happened was I started with the end in mind, true indeed, but I forgot a very vital point about how a character ended up at someone's house because I hadn't put in the context within the story because I hadn't outlined the context. So you don't ever want to create holes like that because trust me, everybody in the world is a script writer when it comes to when they want to adjudicate or judge your work. Trust me, they will be like, well, how did this person get there? They ain't never been to a class, ain't never written a word, but they can find holes in your script and your story. Trust me on that. So to ensure that that doesn't happen, you're going to structure your story with a very well produced and thought out outline. And I want you to do this. Here's a third and final point on this. Think of your project as 3 acts, similar to how a typical play would be. These 3 acts, a certain action has to happen within the 3 acts so they coincide with each other. So they're all going to be working in tandem to tell the story. Because if you think of your project as one long line of details and events, you may get yourself tripped up. But if you break it down into 3 different acts and make sure that that act has a 3-part structure, a beginning, middle, and end, all of them will come together cohesively at the end. Oh, this is so exciting. So part 3, the outline gives your character direction and purpose as well. So your characters need to know where they're going as well. If you don't know where they're going, then they won't know where they're going. And then your characters, you run the risk of your characters being kind of flat and not really having much of a character arc. Character arcs are very important because that's your character's life within your story that you're creating and their conflict and their resolution and all of that. And if you want me to do a separate video and go deeper into characterization, I can do that as well. Just let me know in the comments. I love to hear from you on the comments. So you got to definitely give your character a way to go is what I was saying. And you also avoid sending them into random side quests. because I've read works from other writers, and this doesn't happen that often, but sometimes they'll have the character go over here when they were supposed to be going over there. And I'm like, well, why would they go to the grocery store? Oh, that's because in, the third and final act, they'll need to do this. And I'm like, do they really? Oh no, well, I can just add it. You don't want to start doing that. Stick to your outline once it's created, because you don't want your characters to have these random side quests and then you have to kind of figure out what to cut out. And it just makes it into a whole entire complete mess. So do it for your character. If you don't feel like doing an outline for yourself, do it for your character. You created them. They're in this world display. Don't leave them hanging. They're in the world of your story, excuse me. Or it could be a play, but mainly we're talking about film and TV scripts. Don't leave them hanging, okay? Thank you. Next, outlining saves you time. Writing a script involves so many moving pieces, which you can definitely get out of control very quickly, because what happens is you get into the world of the story and you get excited. You want to tell this story and you want it to grow. And then you may run the risk of putting in some stuff, just like the side quests for the characters that don't really need to go. So you want to make sure you create that outline and you follow it beat by beat by beat, because if you get lost, then your character gets lost. And then if you do go ahead and produce it, which I hope that you will do, produce your own stories, then if you're sharing your script with a team, they get lost as well. And then the whole thing is just shot. So you want to ensure that you save yourself time by doing the proper prep work. Very important. And also on the back end, it helps you avoid numerous rewrites. I remember when I wrote something and I did not outline it when I was in grad school, I had to have about 10 different rewrites, because they were like, well, wait a minute, why is she doing this if this didn't happen? I'm like, God, dog. And so I had to go back. And so I've learned my lesson, and I'm trying to avoid you having to learn yours. Go ahead and outline it. I mean, it really can take you an hour to a day. How, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing an episodic or if you're doing a full feature, it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's really worth the investment because it'll save you time later. And I touched on this from my fifth point. I want to go back. The outline helps your production team not get lost when it's time for you to shoot what you're shooting, because there's nothing worse than you get to set. And normally this wouldn't happen, because especially if you have a good showrunner or, a production team, you get to set and then you're having to do pickups at a later date. And pickups are just adding in or fixing mistakes. That's what they're intended for. But sometimes people have to use pickups because they didn't put a certain part in their story which needed to be there. So you don't want to do that because you have a shoddy script. So outline so you can definitely look out for your team and they can understand how you want this thing to be shot. Because people are like, oh, well, that's what the shot list is for. And mind you, the shot list, of course, is beat by beat what the camera's going to be doing. But that has nothing to do with the contextual essence of the actual piece when you're actually shooting the show. You want to give someone a script and you want to make sure that they can see it beat by beat, scene from scene, because you have done your due diligence as a professional and amazing writer that you are by ensuring that they have a good piece of content and copy in front of them in order for you all to collectively make some art and shoot it together. So that's literally all I have for this video. I feel like I went kind of quickly, but I began to talk fast because I like this stuff. It's very interesting to me. So once again, let's go over the list. You want to ensure that you know why you're doing your outline. Your outline is your roadmap. It's your GPS instructions for your story, and it gives you freedom. It's not restrictive. Number two, if your outline is the map, then the structure is definitely the vehicle. It drives the story. Without structure, you don't have a contextually sound story, and you can't give that to your production team to shoot. It's just not going to happen. Next, your outline is going to give your character direction and purpose. Your character doesn't want to be lost in the sea of the world that you have created for them. So make sure that you definitely have all those outline elements tight and right. Number four, outlining is going to save you time. Not only when it comes to how you actually write the whole entire script, but also it prevents you from having to do 1,500 rewrites, because it gets irritating after a while. So you want to make sure you cover all your bases to ensure that you won't have to get to a rough rewrite process. And then lastly, for number five, the outline team the outline shows your team that you are professional. It shows them that you are prepared, and it shows that you know what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you present your finished script in the highest and most effective and professional way that it can be. Because when you get with your team at the table read, that's when the beauty and the magic begins to happen. That's when the collaboration begins to happen. So I don't want you to put too much stress on yourself to make sure that you have a perfect script at the jump. It would be ideal, but if it doesn't happen, any inconsistencies should be able to come out at the table read. So give yourself some grace and give yourself the ability to know that your product is a living iteration of all the creativity that's in your mind. So some things may get omitted and some things may get added, but you want to have it as tight as you can before you give it to your team and you all have that table read. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you got some knowledge from it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. And shout out to my new subbies. We got some new subscribers joining the community. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you. Welcome. And I typically release videos every single Thursday. So I look forward to seeing you at the next upload. Take care. Bye.